or someone, I heard someone this week as I was reading through some comments and some articles on this subject. They describe it as it's technically it's not really AI. You consider it machine learning
Hmm.
as opposed to actual AI because of the predictability factor and the improvisatory factor that the software has, but it's very much in its infancy stage right now. And so it's more about machine learning. In fact, the language that they're using when it comes to Suno and Udio is another one. There's another one called something hit hit something, and it's a fairly new one. And that one you actually have to upload musical samples to it. You can't just use like worded prompts or use prompts using words. You have to
Hmm.
actually use musical reference
Right.
point. That musical reference point, I don't know the extent if it's one that like Suno in its terms of use, you can't use copyrighted rated music, even though they use copyrighted music to train to start to train, but its platform so that they can get the tens of millions of examples, subgenres, and genres out there. But the biggest thing is more the machine learning aspect of it, which that's a real thing, and that's existed for a few decades, if not longer. And what that all that generally is like for instance, when we're mixing and mastering music, there is a such thing as digital AI or digital machine learning aspects that goes into things like to help with like noise reduction,
Hmm.
pitch correction, in a sense, pitch correction in the sense that it's already been utilized via auto tune and whatever tuners on board the your DAW software and so on and so forth. So so we have those aspects. Also, there's also AI generated tools, so-called AI generated tools that kind of help deal with sampling, deal with workflow and stuff like that. We've seen iterations of this throughout modern history, as recorded music is concerned. I think the biggest concern that everybody has with the whole Timbaland thing and what Suno is dealing with is maybe a little bit of the deception up front by saying that they're not using copyrighted music when they actually were, in order to train and collect the data that it needed in order to pump out the styles and enable people to pump out songs the way that they are. My question probably for them would be, well, in terms of sound production and sound design, what are you utilizing? Because like for me, for instance, I'm a Steinberg user, so I use a lot of their flagship software, from the score writer notation program to the DAW software, and then whatever various plugins that I find very useful for what I'm doing that they offer as sort of a proprietary set. So I'd be interested to know, do they have a version of Ableton? Do they have a version of Logic or Pro Tools that they're using to collect these sounds and to be able to spit out some of the musical data that it's spitting out? Because uh, computer generated MIDI sounds nothing like the example that we've been hearing from the clip that Timbaland was using.
Right.
Those are actually real drum samples. Those sound like real drum samples that's actually been used as a beat pattern for him to use to make that remix that he didn't get permission for to use. And that's the big problem that he has. It's not so much that, because everybody keeps saying, well, he stole this man's beat, yada, yada, yada. He didn't really steal the guy's beat. If you look at the clip in its entirety, at the beginning, you'll hear him say, do y'all remember this? And then he points to him reacting to Cuddy Fresh's beat while the C Red is actually rapping. And so it's pretty clear that that's not his work. That's someone else's work that he's actually using and dumping into Suno, which he calls Baby Timbo. This this guy's hilarious. But anyway, um, and he's not supposed to do that based on the updated terms of service. You're not supposed to do that. You're not supposed to take existing material and dump it in the AI to train it to spit out something, a version of something that you're going to so-called create. And the other big thing that he has that is causing him a lot of angst and problems is the fact that he did not reach out to Cuddy Fresh and get express permission, whether it's verbal or written. That's the big thing that, and it's one thing if he did this, and but he put it on a public platform for the world to see, and until he took the clip down, that that video footage was out there, and so that's the big problem that he's having with that. It's the express permission and the fact that he kind of violated the terms of service of Suno itself. He
Okay.
also has, yeah, yeah. Go ahead, go ahead.
Well, I wanna stay in that lane, the Timberland lane issue for
Yeah.
now,
Hmm.
because I think you two would be considered peers, right? And I
Sure.
would look at you guys as like my elders in the musical space. But here's how I'm seeing the Timberland thing. Now, he's been
Uh-huh.
sued before. Hell, I've had, me and my team had to sue him before for
Oh
it's
gosh.
so
Yeah, he's
now it's
kind of
like,
known.
oh,
Yeah, yeah. He's had some. Yeah, yeah,
so the
yeah.
problem I'm seeing here is when they all came to debate him on why he's pushing so hard for this, and then even
Yes.
Duro was like, "This ain't the way," and he was just doubling
Yeah, yeah,
down, acting
yeah.
ignorant, acting like he wasn't here, and people kept getting up to go use the bathroom, and just
Oh
very
yeah, yeah,
dismissive. And it's just like
yeah,
you
yeah,
already look at you at a certain lens when it comes to your
yeah,
beat making, and you're
yeah.
not doing yourself a favor. Um, why do you think he's pushing so hard for this?
So there's a if you go online, there's a guy that used to, I think he used to do some work for and with Timberland. It's a white boy online who goes by the moniker Weaver Beats,
Oh,
and he has a big problem. Like they're basically beefing. He's kind of or he's beefing with Timberland. I don't think Timberland's really. I think he's kind of ignoring him. Timberland doesn't really take a lot of stuff serious, and that's kind of why you saw him get up 15 to 30 times to go use the bathroom in the
yeah,
middle of the live stream, especially when people were giving him some pushback, and
yeah.
he's just not taking it serious. I think a lot of it. I told my wife this week. I was like, I think this cat is playing with people. I think this is kind of a. I think it's a sort of a bit of a. There's a financial thing I think to this. I think that because I don't see Suno as being a replacement for anything. I think that I saw a podcast this week of a group of youngsters who was talking about, well, when we start doing, what about this leading to us doing more holographic concerts and then you start getting animatronics in the concerts and stuff like that. And I was like, man, we've already done that. We did that with the Tupac thing and the Michael Jackson thing,
It
and
fizzled
that
out. Yeah,
created a
yeah,
subgenre
yeah.
that didn't take over the music industry as far
Right.
as performances go. That didn't replace performers going out and doing live shows and stuff like that. So I see Suno as just kind of being another tool that's going to basically be another subgenre
Okay.
in the musical category. I don't really see it as replacing anything. There are certain things that Suno just won't be able to do. That you, even if you having limited knowledge of music, would be able to do because of the improvisatory aspect of music, and that's something that you cannot really recreate in a sense. You can get the machine to learn how to do it to some level, but it's always going to be a basic level until it's taught and told what to do at a higher level. And even then, it's pretty stagnant. It's pretty much like, yeah, it can think for itself and it can go into some. I've used AI generated improvisatory tools.
Okay.
There was a program I used to use back in 2006 2007 called Band in a Box, and what it was an accompaniment software, especially for uh, various types of tunes that you didn't have accompaniment for. So you couldn't buy Jamie Aebersold play alongs for everything. So it was a way for you to create play alongs for all the hundreds and hundreds of libraries of jazz standards and other types of musical standard rep to perform with. And so with Bannon about, and it was more of a practice tool. And in that, you had categories of different legendary players, and you can ask it to play a sample solo likened to these players. More than likely, there were probably I would imagine I think there was maybe 150, maybe 200 samples of, let's say, a solo over a blues by Freddie Hubbard. And it would play something very close to the late great Freddie Hubbard. And the reason why I mentioned Freddie Hubbard, because that was so unique, because it's easy to mimic Miles Davis, because a lot of his phrases and a lot of the ways that he played was very simply stated. But
Mm.
Freddie Hubbard's a little bit more of a complicated issue when it comes to jazz trumpet. And so a very consummate and technically savvy trumpet player, and he is kind of the father of what you hear a lot of jazz trumpet players playing today. But anyway, with that particular tool, it would generate a solo, and it would change things around in the solo every time to where it's pretty much different every time you heard it. And so we've had iterations of machine learning over the years. There's various samplers, various sampling tools that have come about. Some people would consider samplers AI, but they're not really AI. But there are automatic and automated sort of samplers, whereas you put the idea in and it'll do certain unexpected things and produce certain unexpected outcomes for you. The thing that people started to get into trouble with some of these things, and this is one of the reasons why when it comes to samplers, I'm a fan of one shots. I'm not a fan of sampled phrases, is because people have used those sampled phrases in their works and they've gotten paid for those works. And then the people that created the samplers and the drum packs and the MIDI packs came back and leveraged lawsuits against those people, because it's like, hey, I created that.
Right.
You need to give me a little slice there. And so I just tell people, if you're into producing, learn how to create your own samples or use the sound, because you can't really copyright and patent a sound. But you can patent what you do with the sound. And what you do is just what you do, so it becomes your own.
I don't think these young kids want to go through the troubles that we went through. Literally chop
Yeah,
every
yeah,
freaking drum
mhm,
sound, every guitar note. Like, how many
yeah.
hours a day did we spend just trying to catch it,
Oh,
the
yeah,
perfect snare with nothing on top of it? Like, I don't think I don't think
yeah,
these
yeah,
kids want to.
yeah,
And that all helps with the understanding the musical part. Here's
yeah.
my question. Let me dumb it down for the
Oh,
normies.
sure, sure.
I think the average normie thinks with Suno you can put in a prompt and it'll
Yes.
spit out something you think is in your head, something like Google
Right.
Veo 3. Okay,
Yeah.
that's not realistic because unless you know how to at least a couple notes here and there, it'll never it'll never translate what's in your head. Am I wrong or help me out with that?
Yeah. You're exactly right. And that actually, now, granted, I was giving Timbo a lot of ish throughout the week. Hey, look, I was ready to smoke on the Timberland pack, real bad, like, and I have to. In some cases, I've listened to all these sides, and I'm like, okay, so here's where Timbo is kind of right about some things. He did mention, like, if you put in the prompt, because my taste is my taste, it's going to give me something different than what you put in.
Right.
That that is true with that's not really true with like typing prompts in, because like it's just like coding, it's a language, so the
Mm-hmm.
language is going to communicate a certain thing. Now there may be style issues where
Mm-hmm.
there's some slight stuff, but you're going to pretty much be dealing with the same stuff. But when it comes to actually playing notes and tweaking samples and things like that, yes, when it comes to that nuts and bolts part of it, when you take that prompt and it spits it out and you throw it in the DAW and you start tweaking it to sort of get it the way you actually want it and what you're hearing upstairs,
Yeah.
that's where he's actually right at, where it's going to be different from person to person, because we great minds think alike, but we still come up with different stuff all the time. And
Okay.
yeah,
This is
and I'm actually
this is
prepared to show a personal example of that with one of my compositions leveraged
okay.
against a mentor's composition as well, because I wrote this based on one of his works, and it still came out sounding completely different. It sounds nothing like except where I'm actually quoting him, but even then, it's still different. Yeah, but go ahead. I
Well,
was throwing that in
um,
because that kind of got me to that. Yeah,
well, in all of your years of composition and creating musical pieces, I was early on like I never believed in coincidences. There, I
Yeah.
never believed that me and somebody 2,000 miles away would have the same idea to use a sample the same way, pretty much, bar for bar,
Yeah.
or
That's rare.
and I was like, no,
Yeah. That's
no,
rare. That's rare. Yeah. Yeah. That's rare. And even then, in the rare case that that happens, there's still going to be something different. You'll be
okay.
able to hear. You'll be able to hear the difference.
So,
Yeah.
will you have the same issues that academia is having with their students using Chat GPT for term papers when it comes to you grading somebody's musical compositions?
Yeah, because I deal with research uh, from a new school and old school perspective.
Okay.
Chat GPT, I've said this before, tongue in cheek in the chat before. I don't accept term papers that have basically solely been put together via chat gpt because a lot of things will be wrong, and I can actually tell when I'm reading through the students, even listing the sources, the
Okay.
listing of the sources, I can kind of tell. It's like, okay, you ran this through the prompt tool, and yeah, I'm gonna, you missed the mark on this. You use, like, for instance, like when it comes to listing sources, in music academia, we use what's called the Chicago style manual style. We don't use MLA, we don't use
MLS. Right. Right.
APA.
Okay. Got. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
And so, like, I'll get students that will give me APA collection of resources, and I'm like, no, that's unacceptable. That's not what we're doing here. If you were over in the business school, or if you're in the school of psychology, that would be acceptable. But and if I was doing music therapy, I would accept that if I was a music therapy teacher, professor, or teacher. But I'm not. And in the case of something like jazz history, or a treatise, a review of treatises in jazz theory, you need to give me a Chicago manual style. It's the one that's the most used in the music world and
Hmm.
musical academic world, and it's the one that's the easier to sort of understand from the musical perspective, because it lays it out almost like how we would lay out music, and how we
Okay.
would tend to look at, like, certain things on the staff in music. It lays it out perfectly. So it's like the perfect style for musicians to use when they're doing high level research. Yeah.
And how many years do you think it would be a problem for you? What would it take for you to be like, okay, this is a problem. We need a faculty. We need a meeting. You might have to make a YouTube video, be like, hey, no, no, nope, nope, nope. Skirting the line
Yeah.
is going too far. What's going too far? What would you, for what would it be a problem for you at some point?
I think um, I think if the prompt tool, or the machine learning tool, ends up sort of doing all of the footwork, all of the writing, all of the uh, all of the grammar, I'm fine with the grammar tool, of course, the spell check tool.
Okay.
But I also try to remind students, especially when you're using the spell check tool, really, really learn how to spell the word. Don't just rely on the spell check tool, but, like,
Okay.
look at what the correction is, and move on, because you're going to use these words again. You're probably going to use these words again, and so don't just rely on the tool blindly. And so, but I think going too far would be when it starts to actually do the writing for you, or the typing for you, and spitting out the ideas uh, fully, because
Hmm.
the ideas that you come up with, and even in Chat GPT, are still kind of your ideas. You're still leveraging them. It's just helping you to organize them, and then it's giving you sort of some calculated ways of how you're going to end this phrase, how you're going to end this statement, or this type of this thought on, especially if you're expressing an opinion that's based off of a scholarly work. So
Okay.
it'll do some things, and it'll land pretty much where you wanted it to land. My issue is some of the things that are just right and wrong. There are some things that, yeah, that's kind of it, but that's not really, like, for instance, one of the companies, or one of the entities that's suing Suno, is the GEMA. So that's the
Okay.
German Performance Rights Organization, or PRO. And in that, they have this lady that's a part of the court proceedings, that was showing everyone how what the similarities were between the outcomes of Udio, I mean not Udio, Suno, and the existing pieces to which it borrowed from in order to be trained. And
Okay.
so they called her a musicologist. And when you look up the word like the AI or even the prompt machine learning overview, it's going to tell you a musicologist is like the obviously ology is the study of music. So and then they would suggest that it's a scholar that tends to focus on um, all aspects of music generally, and that is true academically, but a musicologist really is a music historian. That's really, in a nutshell, what a musicologist is. But this lady is not, like, her background is not in musicology. Like that's a specific discipline in music. So when they said musicology, I was like, oh, well, I got to look this woman up because as another scholar in music, I have to know who these folks are.
Right.
And the best, if you want the best definition of what musicology means or what musicology is defined as, the American Musicological Society is they give you the near perfect definition of what musicology is. But she's a well studied and learned person in music, but her discipline is not
That's not
musicology.
a
It's
discipline.
it's
Gotcha.
it's,
Okay.
it's like digital humanities or something like that. And so, which is a scholarly discipline in and of itself, but that's not the
Hmm.
same as musicology. So it's like that's like my thing with like the machine learning prop tools is that there are certain things that are like that's it, but there's a little bit more. It's in a nutshell, it's music history. A person that deals with the history and all of the different historical periods in music that define the styles, especially when it comes to Western classical music, leading up into contemporary styles of music, classical and jazz, blues, chamber music, and so on and so forth. So it's a person that understands all of the aspects from the performance, the compositional, uh, the even the scholarly aspects of those different periods, time and time
Okay.
associated with music. It became a discipline in like the 1890s and kind of, you know, morphed its way all the way up to today. But that is a specific discipline. That is super scholarly discipline too. We
Hmm.
talking about like musicologists know the history of everything. Like they
But
like
there's no
like
part of the conversation you couldn't have with these people though. Like they're would you say they're above you as far as in depth knowledge or just the history of music? Like you would walk into the room with these people and you'd be like, oh, I can talk with these people bar for bar. Like you wouldn't
I
feel
can talk.
like
I personally could talk with them because I know a lot of theory
okay,
and by default I kind of know a bit of history, quite a bit
uh
of history of where the theory comes from. But it's generally based on from a compositional, which is a whole nother discipline in music. Composition, studying music composition is a completely different discipline in music because now where I lose them is in-depth knowledge on theory, form analysis, and stuff like that. They do have a good take on it, but there are certain nuanced things. They're very like sensitive, nuanced things that I just know about scales, for instance, and that's an area of research for me. That's a specific area of research for me
mm-hmm.
is scales and how it applies to harmony and the study of harmony. So yeah, I could probably leave cats in the dust when it comes to that, but I try not to because it's such a heady subject. I want people to be as passionate about it as I am.
Mm-hmm.
And so when I nerd out about it, I'm trying to pull them along
Yeah, yeah,
in
yeah.
the nerd with me when it comes to like music theory and stuff like that. Plus, I have perfect pitch, so I hear all this stuff. So
Okay.
so this
Okay.
is like it's just a big thing for me. But yeah, like there, I tend to learn. I'm always enlightened with musicologists about some historic something that I didn't know before. And
Okay.
they really have a grip on it, especially the ethnomusicologists. The ethnomusicologists is a whole nother bag, man. Those guys, man, they know some stuff.
I'm
I
I'm
mean,
gonna
they know
save I'm
some
gonna
stuff.
save all the Afro stuff for later to ask you. But
Sure.
I got a two-parter for you. You wake
Okay.
up tomorrow morning and you have a 5-year-old out the blue in your house,
Okay.
and given the current climate that we're in now, the first question is: you
Hmm.
have a 5-year-old tomorrow.
Hmm.
How much of the music you know, the theory, all the composition, you teach him before you say, okay, here's the Suno. I need you to go ahead and get master this part of the craft as well. Or do you say you don't need that?
So so that brings me to the dilemma of who and what a tool like Suno is really for.
Okay.
Um, so if I have a 5 year old, I would I could start him or her on Suno. I could actually
Okay.
start him or her on Suno, and I would actually use it simultaneously with teaching them the foundational nuts and bolts of music.
Interesting.
As one music theorist calls it, the grammar of music, because
Okay.
they consider music as a language, and so that idea of not learning music theory, along with learning how to perform and play an instrument, is sort of like learning English without grammar. And I thought that was a great analogy there, because yes, that makes total sense. You have to know the rules and the
Mm-hmm.
parameters in which to sort of speak that language. And so
Mm-hmm.
why things do what they do in music, and why things sound the way that they sound in music. And so I think that using it as a learning tool to sort of learn things like theory, form, and analysis, I actually think that I think it would be a good starting tool. Once that student really learns the grammar and learns how to read music, they don't need it. Like a cat like me doesn't. That's the other dilemma. To me, Suno is for people who have no sort of basic knowledge of music.
Okay.
So they don't really they like even it like and I'm not even talking about reading music and knowing music notation, but just
Okay.
being able to like put sounds together, build a chord, like take two notes and make them sound like something. Take take one, like a grouping of notes and make it sound like a melody. And so people who just have no basic knowledge of that or basic skills in that, that's what Suno would really be for. On one hand, I think on the other hand, it would be another tool for a person that um, maybe not as learned in the nuts and bolts of music, but they want to sort of generate ideas. And I think it actually could be a decent tool to help people organize those ideas.
Okay.
But organizing those ideas, and again, keep in mind this is based off of copyrighted music. Organizing those ideas and then getting to a point where you take the training wheels off and now you're going to just ride the bike and now you're on your own with the ideas. That is the other side of the sort of compositional element and the music theory element and nuts and bolts and fundamentals of music, where now you have to this you're on your own, and this is where you're now putting that knowledge to the test and you're actually applying that knowledge. And that's something that uh, people who are solely reliant on AI generators like Suno and Udio, that's where they're going to find out where their limitations lie. And
Okay. Perfect
yeah.
segue.
Hmm.
So I'm of the belief that every advent of whatever new musical piece of equipment has kind of regressed the composer to a certain extent. Up until the '80s, when the synths and all the everybody could still play, everybody
Yeah.
was still musicians. But then
Yeah.
the SP 1200 came out, the PC came out, the machine
Yeah.
came out, and with every
Yeah.
invention, the producer kind of got lazy or lost a certain skill set. Um,
Yes.
do you see it get to the point where people are going to be like, okay, Suno versus let's say a drum machine or a keyboard? Will it get to
Yeah.
the point where it's going to be a pick and choose, and the path of least resistance would be the AI version? Do you
Yeah.
see that as
So yeah, I do see that happening, but I think that those people who will solely rely on the AI pathway will be stuck.
okay?
I don't think that they will create anything. Again, I think it's going to be a subgenre, and I see that as still being a very generic tool.
Okay.
So I don't think anybody's going to create anything special, and because they're going to lack the skills if they don't in turn go and say at the same time that I'm doing this, I better learn how to do some voice leading and know
Mm-hmm.
what some of that voice leading is and how to build a chord and stuff like that.
Right.
If they don't do that or learn how to actually play some drums, a little bit of drums and learn how to play the drum pad, and relate that to the drum set. If they don't really understand that and get some basic fundamental understanding of that, I think that they're going to be kind of stuck. And they I think I think it'll create a certain level of delusion amongst themselves, but I think amongst people who are legendary figures and people who are teachers and students of the game of music, they'll be able to tell folks where they are, and they'll be able to demonstrate it because those producers that do know how to use machine and MPCs and what's the Roland, was it the SMK
Oh
404
my
or
God.
something like
Yeah,
that?
yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
The core
Actually,
trite. I
I
mean,
think that's yeah, yeah. You know what? I love those tools. I don't use them because I'm a keyboard guy, so I have MIDI controllers and I have synthesizers, and I play a little bit of keyboard. And then I use like interface versions on the virtual interface versions of the MPC via what is it called, Groove Agent and Cubase.
okay.
So it's just like, so I use that stuff, and then I also play a little bit of drums. So like if I just have to, I'll just go to a studio and get on the drum set, and then
And
I'll
set
just
your own
record all my
tempo.
drum
Yeah.
sounds and just play.
I, I I
So
remember I remember when Fruity Loops and Cubase came in,
yeah,
and for
yeah,
like 7 8 years, it was
yeah,
just this lull, and I was just like, oh, what is?
yeah, yeah, yeah.
And
All of yeah,
and
and
then
you know
those
what?
kids.
Yeah,
Go
go
ahead. I'm
ahead, go
sorry.
ahead.
Well, I think the
No,
weird thing is all those kids that grew up on that eventually had to
hmm
come back and actually learn how to play an instrument.
yeah, yep, they did, and the reason why they did is because um, who was it? It was there. Is it? It's like DJ Mustard or somebody that was saying that one of the reasons why is because of what they call interpolation, or just learning how to play the samples in,
Right.
and so they don't have to pay such a large slice in royalties.
That's
They
right.
pay a small slice in royalties, and so they learn how to play the samples in, and so then they get paid for a performance credit,
Yep.
and then they
Yep.
just pay off the writer's credit to the person
Yep.
that created the sample, which is a much smaller slice. And so
Mm-hmm.
that's the thing why those guys ended up having to do it, because it became economical and very practical in some ways. If Ashanti could have did that, that could have helped her out big time, and she would have never had to go through extenuating ways to try to get her masters back. She could have just replayed them, but she doesn't have that. She doesn't have that skill, and unfortunately, you know,
Speaking of interpolations,
yeah,
I followed the Marvin Gaye versus Pharrell, Robin Thicke closely.
yep,
I followed
yeah,
the Ed Sheeran case very closely. I felt
sure,
that the Ed Sheeran verdict in his favor was to make up for them getting it
for
wrong
yeah,
for
yeah,
Marvin
for
Gaye.
the Robin Thicke. Yes, yes, yeah, I agree. I agree. I did. So I would have been hated on if I was the music expert brought in
Oh,
for
listen,
that.
I was hoping I'll be on the jury. Please put me on the jury. Be like, this ain't it.
Yeah,
This ain't.
yeah, yeah. Yeah, I'm sorry, man. It was not the thing. You could say it's inspired by the Robin
Yeah,
Gaye.
yeah.
I can't remember that name of that song, but yeah, I know it. I knew it, and when they said it, because it's got that freaking cowbell in it, and I was like, why don't y'all just take that out?
Take it
And see,
out.
I would have suggested that in the court
Okay.
hearings, and it's like, take that out, and it'll sound nothing like that song. And Cass would have been over there like, F that nigga. Like,
Is
yeah,
that what you think
because
the
that
jury?
song, in fact, if I'm not mistaken, it's not even in the same key.
No, it's not.
It's not even the same key. It's
Well,
just,
my problem with cases when it comes to music, they don't bring in a jury pool that's musicians. Like,
mm,
why would you bring in regular people that don't know what a clef note is and a
yeah,
16th and that's the
yeah.
wrong jury. So why do you think that's not? No one's thought that to that point where we need to bring in a jury of these people's peers.
I don't know. I don't know. I think a lot of times I think it just simply comes down to they just don't see people like us out here because we're not
Okay.
in the industry like that. We're not tied to the industry directly like that. And
Okay.
so it's like out of sight, out of mind.
Hmm.
And so they just don't see us. In fact, I I'm stuck with it because I don't really like for me like the music stuff I get a lot of backlash for saying it. Like, so I don't do this for money, like at all. Although I get paid, and I've had my times where I get gotten paid handsomely for services rendered. But uh, this is this is I have so many years. I mean, I took like stock of how long I've actually been involved in music since my childhood, and it's been I started when I was 12, you know,
Hmm.
and and I'm almost 40 years, 4 decades in practicing music. And when I started at 12, I was very serious about it. And but this this is like my life. Like this is kind of who I am. So all of, and the academic stuff that goes comes along with that, in order for me to be able to have learned the things that I've learned and to be able to do and acquire the skills that I've acquired over the years. This took a long time. I mean, I'm talking like the stuff that I know now. I just kind of like the light bulb went off in like around 2016, 2017.
Okay.
And granted, I had made recordings. I recorded for other people and did all this stuff. And I, it's like in 2016, 17, the light bulb went off where so much stuff just started to make. I don't know what it is once you get past it, like the 30, 35 year mark of doing stuff. Like just certain things start to just like, and then there was a period before I went back to grad school to work on my doctorate where I would I was telling my wife there's a connection about something that I'm this close. I'm like this close to just like everything is just opening up, and I haven't quite got to back to that yet.
Okay.
But because of the study and the practicing and stuff like that, there's so much stuff that I've just kind of like just like learned and just actualized and realized like, oh my God, this is why this sounds like this. This is where, oh my God, there's a guy. He's a jazz legend. He just passed away during COVID. His name is the late great Barry Harris. He
Okay.
came up with this concept, this scale, or started talking more about this scale. Everybody had been using this scale for years. All the bebop jazz musicians used this scale for years. And he finally decided to put a name to it because of its general makeup. He calls it a quarter scale. It's called the diminished sixth scale because it's a scale that's made of two diminished chords. So if you take a two chords, excuse me, major six and the diminished sound. So diminished sounds a bunch of minor thirds. It's the sound that you use that you hear in Scooby Doo that makes that spooky sound.
Yeah.
So it's more like so it's that sound.
Yeah.
If you ever hear that sound. So then you take the major six chord and then you put that along with that. So it's these two chords put together, these two scales put together. So what that does, he didn't even realize this at first, but he realized it later. The the amount of chord structures that particular 8 note scale with a couple of just one chromatic note in it, what it gives you is a lot of answers to, okay, when I play a particular line against a minor seven flat five chord or whatever the case may be, like all the notes that I would play in that line up with this particular scale, and
Hmm.
I don't have to swap out notes from other scales to sort of get to it. So what I'm realizing is that actual scale is like answering a lot of questions that I've had over a lot of years when I improvise a particular line. Why is it instead of like if I do something like, but as opposed to instead of that, where is this located? And then
Mm-hmm.
I realized that's actually in the diminished sixth scale. It's seventh mode or eighth mode of the diminished sixth scale. And so like those are like certain questions that this scale is starting to answer. And then there are other scales. There's like for instance like uh the what we call the purely diminished scale is based on two versions of a scale that's all whole steps. That's
Mm-hmm.
all whole tones, and we call it the whole tone scale. But if you merge both uh, whole tone scales together, then you get the what we call the truly diminished scale by alternating every two notes, and I mentioned this to a person when I was in grad school. I was like, well, you do realize that the diminished scale is based off of the two whole tone scales. And it was like, well, how you figure that? I was like, well, every two notes you're going to switch from one whole tone scale to the next. So if you do C whole tone and then C sharp whole tone, you alternate between the two, and then that's what creates that asymmetry in the scale. And it's like you know what? I always wondered, why does this sound like the whole tone scale? And I was like, yeah, because it's a part of its makeup. It's a part of its DNA. And so like it that's the kind of stuff like in 2016, 17 that it was like, oh, and so now my writing, when I write charts for people and stuff like that, it takes me hardly no time to do this stuff, but because of the acquired skills. So like people talk about the time that Suno will save people, but if you acquire the necessary skills, you're going to save that time.
You can't replicate decades of just
No,
experience. You just it's improbable.
no, no, exactly, exactly, exactly. And
Is it fair to say that you're to the point where I would say in your craft, that your mastery, that you can listen to someone else's music and see where they're coming from and why they did what they did? Is that fair?
kind of. I may
Okay.
have to ask them what they were,
What they were.
some specifics as to the why, but I can kind of gather, especially if lyrics are involved. That's super easy at that point. But anybody can do that with lyrics are involved because you just have to listen to the words and how they're expressed. But with the harmonies and the melody, the melodic
Mhm.
content that doesn't have words, yeah, I can kind of listen to. And the other thing too is like I have a very highly developed sense of perfect pitch. So like for me hearing notes and then being able to say, oh yeah, that's C sharp. Oh, that's C. I could do that with chords too. There's a child prodigy that they've done this with. He's a piano player. What's his name? Like Josiah or something like that. I
Okay.
can't remember his name, but I think he's a black kid, wears glasses. He's about maybe 12 or 13 or so. It's a brilliant little
Oh.
kid,
Okay.
brilliant little kid. But he could do this too. He has perfect pitch, and he could tell like, oh yeah, that's C sharp diminished. Oh yeah, that's D diminished. Yeah, that's F diminished. And I've been able to do that since undergrad and college. He's able to do this as a child,
Okay.
so it's
Let's do
really
the
unique to him.
let's do the opposite of that.
Sure.
Given what you hear music, I remember
Mm-hmm.
when Mary J. Blige first came out, and we would
Mm.
literally like, "What is this? This is not even. It's not even the right note, the right key. What is?" And folks are like, "Oh my God, Mary, Mary," and we're just sitting here like, "Do you not understand? She's not even in key. Like, do you?"
Yeah, yeah, yeah. She does not have a good instrument. She was one of the top. So there was a listing back in I think 2017, 2018, somewhere around there, where it was like top 10 artists or top 20 artists that can't sing that convinced us all that they
Yeah.
can
Okay.
sing.
Okay.
And she was like number four, number three, or something
Okay.
like
Okay.
that. And
Well, why do
uh,
you think that
I will
is?
say this. I will say this about Mary J. Blige. I think a lot of it is that sort of pure raw emotion
Okay.
that people tack onto, and that's why they loved her so much. That it's just that Keisha Cole is like this too. Not
Yeah.
a
Yeah.
very
Yeah.
pretty singer,
Yeah.
not a very pretty singer, but it's just like a certain emotional thing that artists like that tap into, and it goes over well with their adoring fans. Uh, I will say this about Mary J. Blige. Never been a big fan of a lot of her music, but there is one song that is so unique in the drum beat. It literally changed my life. In fact, I ended up using that drum beat on my first record. Can you guess what that song is? Most people guess it, by the way,
Oh hell!
because it's the
Don't put me in
only
a
one
spot
that's
like that.
so
Oh,
uniquely
I'm gonna
different.
fail this one.
It's so uniquely different. It's in the '90s, early '90s, and and she has not. I've not heard one song of hers since then that has made me feel that way. And it's literally it's the and it's not even like it's not even a cold drum beat like that, but it's so different. Okay, I'll dump out the drum beat. It's
Wait.
boom,
Is it what can I
boom.
say? Nope, it's not it.
No, that's
Okay.
close. Check this out. Boom, 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 boom.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay. Real
that
love.
shit,
Real love.
man,
Okay.
that that blew me away. That changed my life. So I was like, what the hell? And then
What?
after that, I was like, I'm gonna use that drum beat one day. And it took
That's
me maybe
crazy.
another 10,
Okay.
12 years. And then when I released my first record, it was on the first track of my first record in
Well,
the
you know
bridge
what?
that I used it, and it
Isn't that
worked.
like? Wasn't that an old hip hop break beat before?
It kind of was, but people forgot about it because
Yeah,
it's
that's
it's actually a part of the break. It's actually a breakdown. It's like boom, 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 and then it goes into the
that's an
next.
old
You
Audio
know,
2 record beat.
is
I
it?
get money, or the was called before
Wait a
50
minute.
got to it.
Yeah. Maybe that is.
That's
Maybe
an
that
old, yeah,
is.
that's an old Audio 2 break beat.
Oh my gosh,
It's the
man.
closest thing that
Yeah,
I can remember. So that
I did money.
yeah yeah yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. That beat,
Me
man. I was
and
like,
my people
oh my
call me
goodness.
Milk.
Yeah. And
Okay.
I was like, what the heck, man? But they were using that as a beat, and I was like, man,
Yeah,
I
top
was like, man,
billing,
that
top
had me
billing.
messed up.
Yeah. Okay.
That had me messed up, man. I was messed up. I was messed up for a minute after that. And every time that video came on with her and them black tights and they dancing
Yeah.
around doing that
Yeah.
I was just like, okay.
That
Yeah.
is funny. Um,
Yeah, that's my Mary J. Blige story.
let me. Do you think this is going to possibly hurt Timberland's legacy doing this? Because they did the AI artist before Capitol Records, and it didn't do well. So
Yep.
why does he think this would be any different? I don't think the public is ready. Just like you said with the holographs, nobody wants. They're not
Yeah.
ready for that yet.
Yeah. I think yes. I think it will. I think it will because now people are starting to take him as a joke
Okay.
to a large extent, and which is really sad because dude, I have a lo-fi thing that is I tell people all the time in the description. I think I put this in the description. Timberland inspiration because
Hmm.
it's that beat. It literally is boom, 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 doom, 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 ticky ticky doom, doom. Like I'm like, dude, like you created a beat that like it's the bounce and it's not really him creating it. It's but he took something and reminded people of
Hmm.
there's a such thing as bounce and you could do some real cool things with bounce beats.
Hmm.
And that's a type of bounce beat. And it's like and what he did is added the ticka ticka ticka, all the little 16th notes and the percussion on
Yeah.
top and stuff.
Yeah.
And that was a sound, man. That was a sound. It's such an iconic sound, and it's an obvious sound. It's clear, like who that is, what period of that particular person and producer is. And unfortunately, this I think is gonna kind of hurt his legacy a little bit because people have already nobody's mentioning that. Nobody's mentioning the music that he has created or has been a part of it. Let's say at least.
Well, I
Now, don't
think
get me
that's part of the
wrong.
problem. It's a
Yeah,
generational thing because us, we
yeah,
remember, but these new kids, like,
but
they're
the
not
new
trying to
cats
go.
don't. Yeah.
They're not digging
Yeah,
into
that's
things
like
like.
that Casanat and Wale thing,
Yeah.
where I was like, who is that? And I was like, whoa, minute, wait a minute, Wale is not that old. He had no idea. like,
Yeah.
who fucking I was like, whoa,
Yeah.
what? That's when I said like Wale should just go back to DC and become the next Chuck Brown because he could.
Okay.
that spot is open. That spot is open. And
You think he be?
I've had, and yeah, I've
But
got a
that.
new sort of obsession with go-go music right now, and it's like, man, Wale should be all up in this, all up in
But do
this. He would be
you think
killing
he
it.
would want that though? I mean, at one
Maybe
point he
not.
was at the highest of the high, and then for him to,
Yeah, yeah,
I
yeah,
don't think he.
yeah. He wouldn't want that. Would be like Kanye deciding to go and just only do positive drill music or
Yeah,
something, and it's like,
yeah.
well, not really, you know. But with someone like Wale, because because DC is such a unique place, you find artists that come out of DC, but a lot of artists stay in DC too, and that's
Hmm.
one of the reasons why you don't see a lot of artists get a lot of national recognition, but they get a lot of international recognition. Somehow DC artists tend to be all over the globe everywhere. Chuck Brown is like he's like a international treasure, you know. But nationally, when it's like, well, who the fuck is that? Okay, you remember I feel like busting loose,
Yeah, yeah,
but
yeah, yeah.
oh, dun,
That's
dun,
Gen
dun,
Xers,
dun,
man. It's Gen
dun,
Xers.
dun.
Yeah,
It's like, oh yeah, that cat. Oh yeah,
yeah,
you know. And then when you talk about like, well, he's the guy that's the inspiration behind the Butt song. Remember that from School Days? And it's
yeah.
like, oh
EU.
yeah,
Yeah,
EU
yeah,
band, yeah, yeah. Well, they were a lot of those guys played with Chuck Brown, you know, and got their start messing with Chuck Brown. So
yeah.
yeah,
When I think go go, I think bounce. I'm like, yeah. I don't think the world, the nation wants to.
nah, nah.
Yeah.
Everybody's not going to tack onto it, but when people do decide they want to do some go-go inspired stuff, they always
Okay.
kind of go back to so the DC cats and the DC legends and stuff. And so, so I have another lo-fi thing I'm gonna park on my page that is going to be uh, it's going to be a go-go, but it's going to be the go-go bounce drum beat that I'm going to use
Okay.
this time, and I'm going to use more lo-fi typical. I'm going to try with lo-fi typical instruments, but I might just go more chill hop because of the drums. I might not like the sort of clave sounding snare drum. So I'll have to play with it. I just haven't started messing with the sounds yet. But that go-go bounce beat is a mother boy. I tell you, man, that stuff. And yeah, I know a lot of true go-go-ites don't like it. I get it. You know, it's kind of the next generation of cats. That's what they deal with now. But it is a cool beat though.
Well,
I think it's a cool
I think I've asked you this before, but I want to ask you it again. When it comes to go go and bounce, do you think it's just, I don't know how, it's the genre. It's just nobody here wants it. Like it, there's
yeah.
there's no
Outside
mass
of
appeal for it. If is that
Yeah,
fair to
it's not
say? Okay,
outside of the locale and you know it's locale and it's regional people that are diehard fans of it. Um, it's like New Orleans bounce music.
yeah,
You know, you think about New Orleans bounce music, even the dance that goes along with. Nobody wants to do that dance. In fact, there was a kid from Baltimore with the Boosie Badass song. He substituted that New Orleans dance, and it took off much more outside of Baltimore than the
okay,
New Orleans bounce dance took off outside of New Orleans. Because nobody,
interesting.
like guys, that thing where you spread your legs and you're hopping and you're flopping your feet around, man, no guy's gonna do that shit, man. Ain't no dudes doing that. Now the ladies look good doing it,
Yeah,
but the dudes like that shit looks crazy, man. So this guy, Carnell uh, Stafford, I think his name was, he created in Baltimore what's called the Carnell Stomp, and
okay.
hey man, it was just a better dance and it took off. You know, it was a better step and it took off, and it's like any dance craze now. It's waned, but you know, its popularity is waned now. But for a minute, he had cats everywhere. The one dude that what's his name? They called him Trip, the brother that worked with Ellen DeGeneres show,
Oh,
and uh,
DJ, shit, the guy that
yeah,
yeah,
yeah. I
yeah,
think he, deleted
yeah.
himself, but unfortunately, even he was doing, he jumped on the bandwagon and was doing the dance, and he learned how to do it and was doing it. And you had cats in Japan like trying to do it, and China trying to do it, and it just took off. And but the New Orleans bounce dance and that dance that accompanies the Boosie Badass song, it just nobody wanted it, man. Outside of New Orleans,
Let me
that
ask you, why to me it seems like I would say, I don't want to say Europe, but yeah, let's just say Europe. Is it
Sure.
is it fair to say Europe has a better understanding of music or just a music appreciation? Now, given Europe is the where classical pretty much, if but
Yeah.
given
Yeah.
all what they've contributed to music, um,
Yeah.
why do they get it as opposed to say
Yeah.
the Americans? Well,
I would say I would say Europe and also certain parts of Latin America,
okay,
uh, places like Brazil, Cuba, Argentina, especially the art of the tango, of course.
okay,
Uh, Afro-Cuban music. They have a complete system. The Russians, of course, but that's Europe. But the Cubans kind of run their music programs kind of like how the Russians did. A lot of it is a lot of that Western classical music, which required a high level of skill,
okay.
and that's kind of the reason. And so when you get to Europe, having certain like basic knowledge of music, a lot of that has to do with a lot of that history. A lot of the history that we talk about tended to happen
Mhm.
there by way of people passing through. So it wasn't just white folks, obviously. There were some coloreds that came through as well, and they contributed greatly to the stuff. There was a movie that was I didn't see it as of yet, but I know the history of them. They used to call this gentleman they used to call him Mozart Noir or the Black
Okay,
Mozart,
okay.
which I I take that on the chin to an extent. But the guy's name was Chevalier de Saint George, and
Mhm.
he was a great classicist, a great violinist, and he was also apparently a duelist as well. And,
Okay.
and so like kind of like a Renaissance man. But he was biracial gentleman, and I mean, just a great musician, a great natural musician too, and a lot of people really liked him as well. And so you just have like you in Europe, you just have like this strong amount of history there, and then from there, the music system is just what it is. But holding Europe in high esteem because of its historic place in music, I also have to do that for parts of the Middle East, especially
Okay.
India.
Okay.
India has a very, very high level system of music, especially with Carnatic or Indian classical music, what they call Carnatic music. Um, the oud instrument is one of its staple instruments. It has as deep of a history as classical guitar,
Mhm.
and it's a pretty deep history. Like people who play the oud are highly regarded specialists in it. Um, not not quite to the intensity of like the orchestral instruments when you think of
Mhm.
like the strings and things like that. That just there's so much, and a lot of it has to do. There's so much known, highly regarded repertoire associated with European classical music, and it's just what it is. And again, I also have to harken to places like the Japanese. I mean,
Yeah.
because some of the greater um, prodigies or prodigious talents that have come out, grew up through classical music, have come out of Asia.
Okay.
Via Yo-Yo Ma, Midori Goto, and
Yes, yo, my. Oh my gosh! Now you
yeah,
taking us back.
yeah, 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 yeah.
You
And
might as
they
well
were
go ahead and mention.
and they were
Go ahead and talk about
nightmares.
exact
I think
Perlman and
they
all
were,
that.
oh my God, absolute monsters, man. Just
Yeah,
devastating,
yeah.
devastating, man. I was in high school when I first saw Midori Goto. She came out and
Okay.
played like the Tchaikovsky string concerto, violin concerto, like completely from memory. That's a 45-minute work.
Yeah.
It
Insane.
all from memory. She just killed it. Broke her strings at the end of it. Just broke the hairs on her bow at the end of it, and just it was a flawless performance, and it was all from memory. This music was like in her, and it was just like wow, man. This lady, she was young at the time, but man, just she was frightening, man. Just frightening. Yo-Yo
Oh,
Ma, the solo, the Beethoven solo piece that everybody plays. The first time I heard him play that, it was. Oh my God, just frightening, man.
I
Just
remember
frightening.
seeing it's Zach Perlman. I was like, why does he have a
Yeah,
brace on his leg? And I it stuck with me. Like
yeah,
I always,
oh
I'll
yeah.
never forget that guy. But let me maybe offshoot question.
Mhm.
It seems to me the more higher IQ people are in music.
Sure.
Is
Yeah, yeah. That could. Yeah, musicians could be some stupid people too, but stupid about certain things. But yes,
okay?
usually,
So
yeah.
let's take the best, brightest,
Mhm.
musicians. Whatever. Is that the proper vehicle to move culture forward, as opposed to engineering, medicine, law? It's like music. Really now?
Um,
Is it almost like a waste of intellect?
some people would say that it is, and you get, and shout out to all my tech bros and sisters out there. But sometimes I do get that from some people in the tech community that they
Okay.
don't understand the artist mind, and sometimes it can be seen as a waste, especially old school tech bros and
Okay.
tech girls. And
Okay.
so, yes, a lot of times they might see it as a waste of intellect. The thing is, though, what some of them don't understand, especially those that music is who they are in their life at this point. Do you really think Wynton Marsalis at this point could be an engineer? At this point, I mean,
No.
he has the
No.
capacity for learning. Yes, is he going to do it? Because
No.
there's sort of a sheer will issue here,
Hmm.
and Wynton knows what he knows at this point. But I mean, he's also much older now, and but he was a prodigious talent, and he could have went and did anything.
Anything.
He was
Right.
very
Right. Right.
smart,
Right.
very high IQ individual. This brother, and I know Wynton personally, and I've met Wynton on occasions, and we've had wonderful conversations, especially about music. And in fact, his entire family is extremely brilliant. I played
All
with
of them,
his
top to
brother.
bottom. Yeah.
Oh my God, Delfeo, an extremely knowledgeable cat, especially in jazz and aspects of New Orleans jazz history. Uh, he has their youngest brother, Jason. He's actually on the spectrum, and
Okay.
he's a savant though. This guy is, and he's incredibly brilliant, and he's an incredible percussionist and drummer. And but they all are. Their father, Ellis was an incredibly brilliant pianist and composer in his own right. But he remained in New Orleans, so he was always a New Orleans legend.
Okay. Okay.
But Wynton is incredibly smart. Very much a Renaissance person. Uh, he's very undisciplined about certain things, and a lot of that is because he's so smart. And that tends to be the case sometimes for people who are prodigies and who are extremely brilliant. Sometimes they fail in the discipline department, and I've had to I had to really work at my discipline over the years. Some people were sort of bred to be disciplined,
Hmm.
and like I've said before, Dr. Thunder and I are best buds. We're like best bros. Uh, People don't know this about that. Dr. Thunder is insanely disciplined. This is a super disciplined guy. We're
Okay.
talking about like like all ducks in a row with everything. And but his father is like that. You kind of can thank his father like that. And his father was extremely. His father was a member of Mensa. So his father
Wow.
is like people think Dr. Thunder is smart. His dad is like damn near genius. Like kind of like that dude is very intelligent,
Hmm.
extremely intelligent. Um, he's very well known in the state of Michigan. He worked for the state for a number of years, and in fact retired from the state with his work for the state. He is extremely brilliant. Like this is a very brilliant man, very erudite individual, and wasn't somebody that just went to college and learned all this stuff and but it just things just came like easy to him. He
Okay.
just figured stuff out really easy, and has a real incredible story. But yeah, Dr. Thunder is another one of those like incredibly smart, but also incredibly disciplined people. And that's one of the reasons why a lot of people kind of think of him as sort of like one dimensional and kind of like like, he really doesn't really know what the heck. Well, trust me, the cat knows a lot of stuff about a lot of stuff. It's
Yeah.
just he's so disciplined and very like he's very tract centered
Okay.
with certain things, and so he tends to like latch onto things and just kind of pursue them to its end, at least to its logical end and stuff. And
Well,
I'm
the
like that
reason why.
too, but I'm only
Well,
like that with the things that I'm very passionate about. Like,
gotcha. No, it's funny because the reason why I asked you that question is because I watch all the end of the world movies, and the people
mm-hmm,
they always end up taking out of society, the engineers and
mm-hmm,
musicians, and I'm like,
mm-hmm.
interesting. Yeah, I'm like, okay,
Yeah, yeah,
okay.
yeah,
So,
yeah,
um,
yeah. And it does.
throughout,
The arts do have a way of moving culture forward,
right,
but I would say art at a high level tends to move culture forward because lower brow art doesn't really do much for culture. It may speak to culture to an extent, and it may even and this is one of the problems that I find that pop art and pop music and things like that is having. This is one of the reasons why you have the white boy racist nerds constantly complaining about what's happening at Disney. Well, because it's lowbrow.
yeah,
Um, it's lowbrow, and so all this sort of low tier stuff, even the topics they want to cover, um, in a make believe science fiction thing, they like Ironheart, for instance. They could have did something extremely
oh
beautiful
my god,
with that, extremely beautiful. They
oh
could
my
have did a
god,
thing where it could have been. Can you imagine? Imagine this with Ironheart. Imagine she knows about Tony's legacy, but then she meets Rhodey, and they have their workings out that they
that
have
would
to
have,
work out,
yes,
and then it
yes,
creates some super bad stuff
yeah,
at that point because then she becomes the Tony to him, and
to his roadie,
oh
yeah,
my god, like it's like, dude, that could have been beautiful. That could have been short lived and beautiful, and they make a statement with that and just create some great episodes
yeah.
with some good interaction. But then they screwed up Rhodey's character with having him, with what was it, the scroll crap
Yeah,
that
he's a
happened.
scroll. See, and what bothers me now is we're gonna have another wave of
Yeah.
race hating, race baiting content based off this, and we're
Mm-hmm.
caught in the cross. We're like, we didn't ask for this. Like, talk
Yep.
to Bob Iger. He greenlit this shit 3 years ago.
Yeah.
Your beef's not with
Yep.
us. We didn't. Nobody wants a,
Yep.
and it's just
Yeah.
yeah, we're
Yep.
caught in the cross, and I hate us having to keep going through this shit time and
Yeah.
time again.
Yeah. What was it? They said at some point they were going to do some multiverse things with DC where they were going to introduce like a black Superman. That
Valzad.
that I was furious about that. And here's the reason why. And my wife, we have these discussions sometimes, and we've discussed this stuff a lot. And I told her the thing that pisses me off that there's one character that nobody's mentioning that had a very brief run with Superman, and afterwards, black folks didn't support it, so they just didn't carry the character anymore,
Was
and
it
he's a
Icon?
completely forgotten character. Huh?
Was it Icon?
Yes,
Yeah,
yes,
yeah,
yes.
yeah,
And it's like, what the hell, man?
yeah, yeah.
It's like you could have brought that guy back and did some crazy. Do you realize that there's an episode with Icon's run that Superman was getting his ass handed to him by Darkseid, and
I
he had to
remember.
go and help him. It was Icon that was
Brother
whooping
came
beating
through
the hell out of
like we
Darkseid.
always
He
do.
fucked up, man. He beat his ass, man. And it was like finally Superman was like, got inspired, and now we can take this
Yeah.
mug, man. Man, he's tried to shoot the Omega beam at Icon. Icon blocked that shit. Boom, hit that motherfucker
Yeah,
without.
yeah,
Oh
yeah,
my
yeah,
god,
yeah.
man!
Y-
Man, I was like, yo, like that was a super bad character, man. Him and Superman used to have their little tips and stuff, and they just basically fight till they got tired and stuff. Oh man,
Man, when I was watching that the Black Panther series on BET, when they had
yeah.
T'Challa whoop on Cap, I said, "You'll never
Oh,
see
well,
this
he
ever.
kept him every
You'll
day.
never ever see this ever again. They'll never." You
Yo,
understand?
when you showed that clip, I was like, I forgot about this. I got
Yeah,
a nice little rush out of that, man. I was
yeah.
like, woo,
Whooped his ass, and you'll
you did that. He
never
did
see
that.
this ever. Do you
That
understand?
guy, what did he say? He was like, He said something, and it was like in that accent. I was like, "Yep." I was
Yeah,
like,
you can't even
"Yep."
find a series on any on any streaming sites. You can't even.
No, no, no. Like it's insane. Well, it's just like before they did a newer version of when Black Panther met the Avengers,
Yeah,
and he had them looking dumb. This
yeah,
came out about maybe 2004,
yeah.
2005 ish, somewhere around there. And so they're like fighting on the footsteps of one of the
Mm-hmm.
federal buildings or something. And Cap throws his shield at him, and then he like grabs the shield and swings it right back at him, and he was like he didn't know what to do. Like that's the second time he made Cap look crazy
Yeah.
in a fight. And Tony was trying to like shoot him and stuff, and man, he jumped on Tony's joint, ripped him out of the suit, and it was like he's sitting there like, what the, and he had to go jump back.
And
It was
us as
insane,
comic
man.
book heads, we know that he sits on the Illuminati with all the big dogs. I
Right?
don't think we're going to see that on screen. I don't think we get
No,
that. I don't think we'll
no,
ever get that.
no. Well, they ruined. They basically ruined that with what was it? Mom.
Yeah,
When
Wakanda
she was
forever. Yeah, 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 yeah. Black mom.
like
Yeah, black mom. Yeah,
everybody.
you said it right,
Yeah.
black mom.
Yep. Yep. Yep.
You said it right. Yeah, black mom.
Yeah. Yeah. I was like, man, like first of all, them ain't even your kids. Why you doing this shit, man? You need to go. Like Angry Man from Martin. Hey man, sit your
Hey,
ass down.
sit your ass down.
Angry Man, what you doing here? Yeah. Sit your ass down.
um, Let me ask you. What are your thoughts on K-pop? Are you a fan of K-pop? Do you understand?
Um,
It took me a while to be like, oh, okay, this is actually a real thing. Like they live and breathe
yeah.
this.
I know that it has a lot of people, and it's again, you leave it up to Asians to do something. They're going to do it. I hate to say right, but as an operative term, right. And
Okay.
um, so looking into a little bit about K-pop, those guys are super disciplined,
Yeah.
super disciplined. A lot of the trappings, now they do have certain trappings that they fall into, but a lot of the trappings that have to deal with like things like sexual discipline and just like drugs and all the like goofiness that happens and the effery that happens with being a pop star, those guys don't tend to have those issues too much. They have some of their issues. Don't get me wrong. They have their own personal, issues and things like that. But um, a lot of a lot of those K-pop bands are run sort of like the military. So they have
Hmm.
times they have to get up in the morning, they have to work out, they have to train a certain way.
Right.
They have like sessions where they have to learn certain things. They have reading sessions for the music. Then they go and start practicing the music. They hook up with their choreographers. Then they
Hmm.
so we're talking like hours and hours on days in where they wait. There's no idle time with them. So when
Right.
you see these shows are near perfect. Well,
Yeah.
because they've been working 30 hours a week putting it together
Yeah.
before they go on tour. So I have a lot of respect for the artists in K-pop because I know the level of discipline in which they must have to do that. It's a highly intense selection process too.
Yeah. Yeah.
Out of that. So the music, not really my cup of tea per se. Um, but some of the music is okay. I mean, it's pop music. It's for me, I play it in the background at a function or something. It'll be in the playlist. A couple things will be in the playlist to mix it up a little bit, but that's
I
about
mean, I've watched them their vocal sessions. They all they do is study urban
it. Yeah,
music top to bottom and
yeah,
mimic
yeah.
how we. I'm
And
just
they
like,
mimic all the
okay,
nuances. Yeah, yeah,
yeah.
yeah. That's a
And
thing
they
with
were
Asian people, and particularly with
see,
Koreans, as of late.
yeah.
They so there are with K-pop. There's also a lot of gospel choirs that pattern themselves after
Mm,
black gospel choirs, and so
hmm.
there for a long time on YouTube there was circulating a an evangelical or evangelistic church in Korea, in South Korea, that was singing Richard Smallwood's "Total Praise," and boy, I tell you,
Really?
that end, the amens at the end were spectacular. They
Okay.
were spectacular. And then it's like SATB, so it's harmonized all the way out. And
Mhm.
it was, oh boy, wow, what a group. What a group. They were phenomenal.
Well,
And so they have this thing where they just take like urban culture and urban music, and they put the microscope on it, and they learn how to do it. And
well,
it's most Asian culture, by the way.
yeah.
There's a group of Filipino men that live in Hawaii. They are a singing quartet of men,
Okay. Okay.
and they pattern themselves after all of the black 1960s soul singers. And there was a viral video of them singing like a song by the Delphonics, and man, the first tenor in that group, he sounded like an angel. And they were doing Temptation stuff, and the lead in the Temptation, that guy, I mean, you have to close your eyes because why is he sounding like David Ruffin? But
See,
he's
that's
sitting here like a stocky Filipino man that
now
lives
that's
in
the see
Hawaii.
the hater in me is coming out now because I'm not now. I'm like, yeah, okay, that's nice, nice cosplay, nice flattery
Yeah.
imitation. It's like, okay, y'all doing too much. Like, now that's the hater in me coming out. It's like, okay, you know what? Okay, you can stop now. Thank you,
Well,
thank you for your.
in Japan, like they deal with cosplay to the point where when it came to learning how to twerk, they literally would put step by step instructions in the magazines.
Doc,
Like if
when they
you're gonna twerk,
started
this is what
perming
you
their
need.
hair with the Jerry curl, I was like, I'm done with these
Oh
people.
man,
I'm done with these people. Listen, I don't care about the
it's
tan. Get the
like y'all got
tans.
it, man.
Get the lingo in the dress. But when you started putting the S curl in your hair, I'm done with you. I can't. I
Yeah,
cannot with you. I
yeah,
cannot.
yeah. And it's one thing if you live in America, but like you over there and you
You're
doing
not
that,
even.
it's like, oh, that's like okay. And then
You
when we
paying an
come over there and
import
act a
tax on
fool,
some Jerry
you,
curl. Like you're paying import tax, bro.
and
Okay,
then when we
last
come over
question.
there and act a fool, you draw monkeys of us and tell us to knock it off. Like, hey,
Yeah.
hey, man,
See,
I remember that
exactly.
street.
I
Hey,
hate
but
that
we
we
kind
got.
of brought that on ourselves too. But yeah, man, that
Yeah,
Lord have mercy.
I don't want the Filipino version of Otis. Ain't nobody come to see you, Otis. Nah, I'm
Oh
good.
my
I'm
gosh.
good. No, thank you.
Hey,
Last
and you
question
know
before I
what the
let you go.
Filipino women? I was watching this. I think it was a TikTok where it was circulating on, and it was like when your Filipino friends tricked you into singing at karaoke night, and they all were singing. They were passing the mic around. They were singing a Beyonce song.
Uh huh.
Why every last one of them heifers sounded like Beyonce? And the girl that was invited, she was like, "Nah, I'm not singing. I'm
Nah.
not singing after that. Y'all ain't right, man." Every last one of them heifers can sing, man. Every last one of them. They sound just like Beyonce. And I'm like, see, y'all doing too much, man.
But but
Y'all doing too
nobody
much.
aspires to sing like Beyonce over here. Like she's not.
Yeah.
No one's trying to sing like Beyonce. It's like, well,
Nope.
yeah. Oh,
Like, what are
okay.
y'all doing?
Yeah. Last question. Okay, you know how I feel. I hate Afro beats, and
Okay, yeah. Okay, yeah.
matter of fact, if
Yeah.
you put Afro in front of it, I don't want to deal with it. So, tell me where I'm
Okay.
wrong. I'm just, I want to get your take on it. Once again, the hater in me is coming out. But
No, no, that's all right, man. I get it because I kind of know where this is going. So
okay, okay.
go ahead.
Well, I either I'm not refusing to get it. It just doesn't resonate with me. It's like
Yeah.
I'm good. Like no, thank
You
you.
know, you remind me of Ari Spears in Ty City when Ty City had me rolling the night when he was talking about the Afro London or Afro British drill rap, and he was
Yeah,
like, nah, I don't like that shit, man. I was like, I get it, and I know why. And Ari Spears went as far as to mimic the cats, and I was like, oh my god, that's kind of how that stuff sounds.
yeah,
That
yeah,
to
yeah, yeah, yeah.
the book, we go bum 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 to the book, you know what I'm saying? Oh, what I'm saying? I'm playing.
Yeah.
And I'm like, oh Lord, have mercy,
No,
man. And it's just like, and don't get me wrong, there is a place for that music,
yeah.
but it is hilarious at times, man. If I'm not ready for it, I'll start laughing, man. I'll hear it, I'll be like, oh god, and it's just like, yeah.
I
I know
mean,
what
for a
this is.
couple years, like that's all was. You don't know, you don't listen to Afrobeat. Hell no, I don't listen to Afro. Am I missing something? Like,
Yeah.
and
So in the chat, so I was trolling cats in the chat that night. I ain't gonna lie, I was trolling the f out of cats in the chat that night, and I was like, "You are nothing but a bunch of tethers. Y'all ain't no y'all that listen to that stuff. Y'all are tethers. I know y'all. I know you niggas. I know where y'all. I know where y'all coming from. I know where y'all family from. Y'all ain't nothing but a bunch of goddamn Jamaicans, a bunch of West African niggas, and a bunch of Nigerians, and maybe Central and South African niggas. I know y'all niggas. I know who y'all is." And cats was like, "Man, get out of here, man."
so
They were like, "Man, get the hell out of here, man."
okay, so from your musical standpoint, am I not getting? What am I failing to understand?
Well, I think that a lot of times, like, so for me with the Afrobeat stuff, a lot of it is kind of like I liken it to a lot of dance hall stuff. It is kind of like a type of dance music. So like when we're talking about like what was it, Afro beats,
Af-
techno,
yeah, the
and
Afro house. I was like Afro house. Like
Afro
what
house
is
and
that?
stuff like that. And so that was just kind of like, you know what, to be honest with you, it was a good correct merging of like house music, or at least up tempo EDM music with that sort of Afro beats vibe and sound.
Okay.
I liken it to the reggaeton beat, the soca beat, which is basically like soca beat is really what reggaeton is based off of. A lot of Mexicans try to act like, "Oh, Daddy Yankee." I'm like, "Oh, where do you think Daddy Yankee got it from?" It's just like, come on,
Right.
man.
Right.
But that whole like, and all of that kind of comes out of that sort of Central and South Africa, and also the West African sort of what their take on that boom, chak chak boom, chak chak boom,
Mm-hmm.
chak chak boom, chak chak boom, chak
Mm-hmm.
chak. So whereas with the Jamaicans, when they got it, it was more like boom, chak boom, cha cha boom, cha cha boom, cha cha boom, cha cha.
Yeah.
And then with the reggaeton people, they got it. It was like boom, cat boom, cat boom, cat boom, cat boom, cat boom. So it's just like it, but it's the same. It's just different iterations depending on where you are. I think even the Cubans got a version of it that they have, and yeah, it's not it's not stuff I listen to every day, but I know the beat, I know the music enough. I've heard enough of it to where I could recreate it. And so if I'm ever recreating stuff, um, I'll instead of using the simplistic sort of like if I'm gonna do a reggaeton thing, instead of
Uh-huh.
using the simplistic, Spanish frittering thing, ding 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 ding
Yeah.
ding
Yeah.
ding
Yeah.
ding ding ding. It's all of that, but then you just slow it down and you got the reggaeton. So I might liken it to like I want to put some jazz stuff on it, so I make it more
Okay.
jazz, and that kind of a
Okay.
thing. And so do I do? I think I may have one lo-fi thing that I did that kind of fits that. No, it's not lo-fi. It was something that I was working with my software, and so this was one of the musical examples that I created, and so this was a soca thing, and so I use some of that sort of Spanish Phrygian stuff, and then I kind of go into just some string stuff that's just kind of like the symphonic stuff, the symphonic
Mm-hmm.
side of me. And so that's with a lot of that stuff, I just keep my ear to the ground on it. I know what it's like. So if I'm ever asked to do uh, create something, I was asked by an
Of
artist one
course.
time who's a big reggae. He's a reggae artist out on the West Coast, and uh, uh, you know, uh, and he's got a small little following, and he was like, I have a wedding that I'm going to sing, and I'd like you to do a song of mine. So it's a reggae song, but I'd like you to do it more of a reggae dubstep version. I was like,
Okay.
reggae dubstep, like
Okay.
what the hell? Okay, I gotta go, and so I just kind of researched a little bit, looked it up, and then it was like, okay, then I got it. So then I just made sure I had all the sounds that I needed to make the track, all the little like the sort of boingy sounds and
Yeah.
the sirens, but like keep them subdued and push back and all that kind of stuff. And I had a couple of nights that I had to just kind of stay up with it and just kind of like, but then I was like, okay, now the drums. Now, how do I muffle these drums so they're not hollow and just sound, and where the snare is just ringing all over the place? And so I
Yeah.
had to work that out, run it through some filters and stuff, and then was able to come up. I put my, so like people talk about producer tags. My producer tag in a sense is always some type of intro. It could be a string
Okay.
intro, be a woodwind intro, but it's some type of intro of some sort or atmospheric thing. And it'll be something that I typically just do
Oh, so you're not doing the
harmonically.
produced by Dr. Doug,
No,
bitch.
no,
Oh,
I tried to, you know, oh my God, I
you're
tried to
not doing
do
those type
that.
of things.
And my wife kind of was like, you know what, man, why are you doing that? And I was like, yeah, maybe I don't need to do that. Yeah, because I was all like, yo, Dr. Doug, here's another one. And it was like, man, if you don't get the hell out of here with that. And I was like, I thought it was cool. You know, it's like,
Oh
no,
my God.
it sound like you about to announce
Oh,
the Quiet Storm radio shit, man. Like, knock it off. So I quickly was like, nah, that ain't gonna work. Then I was like, yo, Dr. Doug, you did it again. Nope. And I just went through like just a bag of tricks. I couldn't get anything to work. And I was like, I gotta get me a tag. And I heard K Fresh, Cuddy Fresh would do this as well. And so he just finally just came up with a staple where it was just, and it was like,
okay.
oh, that, you know, and so he never had to mention his name or nothing like
Yeah.
that. And I was like, you know what? I'm not gonna do that. I'm gonna just use music. And so so it change and it can change from song to beat and song to
Okay.
song. And I was like, that was perfect. So like
What?
at the beginning of this particular artist's joint, I put this elaborate little string intro. I did it again for one of my lo-fi joints I parked on my page called Crossberry Heathen, and I just do like I do a keyboard intro and with the Fender Rhodes sound, and then it comes in with the plucked pizzicato strings,
Hmm.
and that's the tag, and then
I,
that's what I keep it
I don't think people realize how bad the stealing was to where we had to do tags like every
Yeah. Oh yeah.
5 seconds
You
throughout your
know.
track. Yeah,
Yep.
it
Yep.
was
So yeah.
that bad.
Yep.
People will
Yep.
never
Yep.
know.
So what I end up doing, so like in the last joint I did was a go-go beat, and I for some reason I went back and re-listened to the Renee and Angela song "Your Smile,"
Yeah.
and that song had me, man. Just it's one of the most beautiful ballads of the 1980s, man, and just a gorgeous Angela Winbush, man, singing her butt off, man, and just I was like, I forgot about how beautiful this song was, and then I couldn't shake the song. I was like, okay, I gotta do a lo-fi joint of this, but I'm not gonna do a straight cover. I'm gonna do
Mhm.
something inspired by this. And then I remembered this bass line that I kept coming up with, and it was based on the same notes that's used in the bass line of Your Smile. And so instead of doing the bum 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 boom bum bum bum,
Yeah.
it was like, you know what? I kept hearing buddy 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 ball ball, and I was like, you know what? That's like a go-go joint. Let me go into Empire Breaks and dig into my drum chest, and then
Hmm.
I found, you know, the drum set that had the congas with it,
Okay.
and I was like, if I can get that, if I can get that to lay, and then I can pattern the beat around it, I can work out. And I didn't want to just do just straight quarter notes and eighth notes with the hi hat, so I was like, let me come up with something with a hi hat that's gonna, you know. So I just kind of built this thing from the bottom up, and then
Hmm.
it ended up sort of, and then I took the same guitar riff from Your Smile, but instead of, I swung it, and it wasn't just, so the whole guitar riff was just all the way through the song was just, and I was like, I didn't want that to get lost, so
Okay.
it was just like, um, so I kept changing the notes with the chords there, and so then it worked out, and so it just
Hmm.
kind of became something else all entirely. And then at the end, I mouth the words "Your Smile," throw it into auto tune,
Okay.
and get sort of the robot sound and stuff. And so a few people really liked it, man. I
Okay.
was really happy with it. I played it for a couple cats, and they were like, "Man, this is really, yeah, man, yeah." And that Your Smile at the end, I was like that was the homage to Renee and Angela, because I couldn't shake that
Nice.
song. That song is so beautiful, man. And it just had me for about like 2 weeks, like 2 solid weeks.
Okay.
And see, when I listen to music, it's annoying because I'll put I'm kind of like David Goggins. You remember how when somebody asked David Goggins if he listens to music when he's running all those miles out, and he was
Mm-hmm.
like, "No, I don't listen to anything." But when I was working out doing my workouts, I'll listen to. He was listening to. I can't remember the song, but he was saying he would listen to it the entire workout and just put it on repeat
Oh,
over and
repeat. Oh,
over
wow.
and over
Okay.
and over again. So a lot of times when I go out on runs, I don't even notice the music because I'll be playing something and it'll just be that particular track and it'll just be that. I'll just cycle
Well,
it over and over again. But
you know, I
when I'm actively listening to music, I'm listening to music that way too. When something
see,
catches my ear, I'll just listen to it
and I'm
over and over.
just now getting to the point where I don't try to break down every sound I hear in a
Yeah,
song. Now, I'm just now
yeah,
getting to the
yeah,
point where I can just let it play without what
yeah,
is this?
yeah.
And then,
So
it,
I wish I could turn it off and
yeah,
listen to music like that. I never could, and that was the and so I said if there's a such thing as a curse with having perfect pitch, that would
yeah,
be it. Is that because I've already figured the song out, at least the basic things about the song. Like as soon as I hear it, and it could be something cold, like like when freaking uh I'm sorry, man, between the Drake and Kendrick Lamar beef, the heart part, Drake, I'm sorry. I know Cat's gonna want to kick me in my head for this, but Drake was rapping his ass off in that. And
yeah.
and
Well, listen,
oh my
I don't know
god.
how anybody else not sees it any other way. Kendrick
Oh
will never be able to do anything in life without
no.
people mentioning that man, not the other way
Yeah.
around.
No. And it's not the
And
other way around.
right, and
Dude,
I'm
like
like,
I got a beat that I put on my page. I told somebody, this because of the organ sound. It just took these niggas to use the organ sound that way, and I was like, oh, if he used the organ sound that way, whoever produced this track, I could use it this way because I know jazz organ.
yeah,
And but it was the first time I recognized Drake's talent was listening to them. Him and Trey Songz, that song they did together,
yeah,
"Successful."
yeah.
That song still, man, that song still hits me here, man. When I
Still
listen to
bangs.
that,
It still
that
bangs.
song it aged well, man. And that organ in it,
Yeah,
um, what was it? What is it? And then,
yeah,
oh man, and it's just like that whole chorus sequence, and
yeah,
that's on the B3. And I was like,
yeah,
yikes! And I was like, so killing, man. And so I was like, you know what? I'm gonna do me a little trap drill beat, and and then what did I end up doing? Something like and I was like, yeah, because the organ you got that percussion sound there, so I can. And then it was like, okay, now throw that in the B3 sound, and then you get that Leslie. Woo,
yeah,
woo,
yeah,
woo.
yeah.
Oh man, I was like, yeah, man. I was like, thanks Drake and Trey Songz and whoever produced that shit. That was cold, man. I was like, that's some cold
Yeah.
stuff. And then like used one of the atmospheres joints there. Man, I was like, man, that was. I was like, yeah, you cats got one with that one. And I just love that tune too, and just like, I wish Drake would have stuck to his guns when he said, if you diss me, you'll never hear a reply for it. I
Yeah.
wish he'd have stuck to
Yeah,
that.
I can imagine the pressure he was under, and I'm sure
Yep,
people in his ear like, "You gotta say something. It's looking
yep.
bad out
You
here
got to
for you."
say something. Yep,
Yeah,
yep, yep.
yeah,
I was like, I wish he would just like, nah, you know what? That's my cat. But he did this before with Pusha T and and stuff like that. But yeah, on the hard part, I was like, he was going, but like that, that bass line and beat, that's kind of like that, it reminds me of some like Frankie Beverly and Maze kind of stuff. Bo,
but
bo,
that's his
bo,
daddy. That's his daddy's influence. Like,
yeah, yeah, that sure is. That actually is.
people
And his
forget
uncle, remember his
yeah,
uncle Larry Graham used
that's
to play
right.
with Michael Jackson.
That's right. That's
Yeah,
right.
Yeah. That's his dad's. Exactly, man. Yep, exactly. That sure
That's
is.
why
And they
I'm.
were part of that. They were part of a lot of that, a lot of those sounds from the 70s and 80s.
Well, that's what
Yeah.
threw me off. Is like how you slandering him for not being part of the culture. Like he's more of the culture than
He's
look at
more of
this
the culture than
bloodline.
you are.
His dad, right? I'm
Yeah.
saying what you do with dog.
Like he's actually a part of the history of
Yeah.
lineage.
What?
The Graham brothers, man. What are we talking about, man? Like, do
Um,
you know who this nigga uncle is? And
I
this
don't
is
even
his
think they realize until
This ain't
they
no great uncle, distant cousin shit.
no.
This like one of them niggas, you know.
Yeah.
And I'm sorry, like this nigga is he's like on the Thriller album,
Yeah.
you know. And it's like, dude, what we talking about,
What are
man?
we talking about exactly?
Yeah, Larry Graham is like he's one of the industry greats on bass, you know.
Yeah.
And his
Look,
dad
he's
is a
mentioned with the Vic. He's mentioned right next side to Victor Wooten and all of them.
absolutely.
Like what do you?
Yeah.
He's
Victor Wooten talks about Larry Graham.
yeah.
Like that's one of his guys.
But
You
see
know?
now that
Yeah, Larry Graham. Oh,
we're expecting urban normies to know who these guys are, and that's the problem.
you know. Yeah.
You know.
And don't get me wrong, I don't know all the producers and all the, but I have come across these guys as a musician, and it's like, yeah, no, these guys were cold, man. They were some cold cats, man. They were some
Yeah.
real
Let
cold
me
cats.
my
Hmm.
my last little rant with the Afro House thing. Like
Sure.
it just feels forced to me, right? And my
Okay.
one of my favorite African songs is the song from Shaka Zulu, the theme song. I wear that song out. I don't want to
Oh
hear nothing on
yeah,
top of it.
yeah.
You know what I'm
Oh
saying? Like
yeah.
as a kid
Okay.
hearing that record, I was like,
even
oh,
though
that's.
even even though that TV show was wrong on the history, but the score in that was
But
incredible.
the
Yeah,
song stuck
yeah,
with me, and I don't.
yeah,
And every time I
yeah,
see
yeah.
Henry his face, I hear the theme song,
Yeah,
man. I
Henry
hear the
Sealy, man.
yeah,
Yeah, I don't know if he's still with us or not, but
yeah,
yeah, shout out to that cat. Rest in peace if he's not
yeah.
with us anymore. But yeah, Henry Sealy, man. Yeah, that Hushaka,
Yeah, yeah,
Hushaka.
yeah. Boom, 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 boom. I was like, oh shit, where's my
Yeah,
speed?
yeah, yeah.
Where's my motherfucking shit? Let's go. Let's go. Knock
I
this
haven't
one.
seen
You
that.
know what
I
I'm
haven't
saying?
seen that
I
since
get
I
hype
watched
off
it on
this
TV in
shit.
the '80s. But that music stuck with me, man. And I wasn't even a musician yet when that stuff came out. I think it was the next year that I actually started
Okay,
working on
okay,
learning how to do
okay.
trumpet. But that music, I would always hear music, man, like that, and I would hear like the score and stuff like that. And early on, I knew I wanted to create and write music. I was into that stuff, music scores and all that stuff. I just didn't have the wherewithal that I could explain the stuff, but I didn't have the musical knowledge to explain it in the jargon.
Well, I just want
Uh,
to say to you that I'm so glad you were able to find your passion and then still let the passion take you and you still hone in on that. I've come across so many
sure.
horror stories of people that burned out because they
Yeah.
couldn't find a way to pivot into the business or stay in the business because they were so focused on being an artist. And I went through that
Yeah.
at one point. Like we all came into like wanting to be an artist, but then you
Oh,
realize, okay,
oh,
I'm not good at being an artist. Let me find another avenue
yeah.
into this.
Oh, I have quit. I have officially quit at least 4 or 5 times.
Yeah.
Like where I have tried to go and do something else, and I couldn't. I just couldn't.
Yeah.
I always end up coming back to it, and coming back to it in a way that is like, because like I would always question, am I meant to do this? Am I
Hmm.
really that good? I mean, I know a lot of stuff, but I feel like I can't use the stuff, and I just, I've even recently had some issue with that, especially with regard to where I'm living currently living, and it's just like, and my wife keeps pushing me to say, look, go to LA, go to New York.
Yeah.
I don't struggle musically there. I only struggle financially there because it's just extremely costly places to live.
Yeah.
And it's real easy if you don't have a plan. And that's the problem. Before I just kind of would go to these places without a plan and
Yeah.
just kind of try to, get discovered. And that's, I mean, there's something lovable about that because you believe in what you have to offer, but then you have to be pragmatic too, and you have to
Right.
you gotta keep the lights on, man.
Yeah.
And that's the thing that took me a while to just say, okay, this is it. And a lot of it is because I also was making money teaching. So I always had my foot kind of in
Hmm.
in one aspect of the business, and then on the educational side of stuff too. So that that was the thing. But you have, but even when you're going to a scene like a New York or
Hmm.
LA, you have to kind of go and forge connections like almost immediately. You
Yeah.
can't just go there and just drop in the center and then just be like, okay, I'm here, guys. What's up? It's like, and cats will walk right past you.
And the worst part about it is like, hey, we got a session. Can you be here tomorrow at 3 a.m.? I'm like,
Yeah.
oh, well,
Well,
okay. Like,
that has happened to me a few times, and I'm already on the plane going back home.
see,
I already like quit. I
see,
was like, man, I'm
yep,
on the plane heading back home. He's like, oh man, I really,
yeah.
and I'm just sitting there, and I'm like, and it's just like, yeah, but it's what it is. I still take what I've gotten from those scenes, especially my time in the D.C., Maryland, Virginia area, and then also in New York as well. And I I got a lot of stuff, and even the last time that I was in the New York City area as a writer from a composing standpoint, um, I've had some very unique opportunities throughout my life in music, and one of the really special periods in New York was at a time an old college friend of mine um, got a chance to check out some of my rehearsals with a
Okay.
lot of my big band works and a lot of the works that I used to be a part of the New York City Jazz Composers Workshop through BMI. And so they have a jazz composers workshop is through invitation only. And when I was a part of that, I got to premiere some pieces that I got to do as sort of a step away from what I normally do when I'm composing for big band. And one piece in particular that I remember, I did three or two tribute pieces. One was to an educator out of the Chicago area.
Mm,
You might like this. Her name was Dr. Marva Collins, and
okay.
uh, and if you remember the Marva Collins story that was played by Cicely Tyson, that
Oh
was
yeah. Okay. Yes.
yeah,
Yes.
and great movie, man. I'm sitting here just like in tears, man. Like at the end of this thing, it was just a powerful movie, and this woman started her school, West Side Prep, in her home,
That's right.
and
That's right.
all the stuff that came with that,
Yeah.
and she just kept at it and kept at it, and then the school became just a thing in Chicago. None of the students went on to be these like sort of great politicians or nothing like that. Just became great productive citizens.
That's
But
it.
they
That's it.
all were just very smart kids. A lot of these kids were considered to have learning disabilities, and she was like, "Nah, we just gotta figure out what their learning style is." And she
Okay.
went and forged individual educations and learning things for all of these kids. And I was so inspired that I wrote this sort of rock ballad for big band for her. And I had it posted on Facebook for a long time, and a lot of people were just floored that I, decided to, But that's the kind of stuff that kind of gets me and
Hmm.
it sort of inspires me to sort of write a lot of music. A lot of the music I write is about something or tells some kind of story or is for
Okay.
something. And then
Okay.
the other one was for this great Jewish jazz composer by the late great Bob Brookmeyer, and I fashioned the piece after three really cool pieces of his that he had written for big band over his years as a composer. What did I call that? That's called gosh, I can't remember the name of that one, but I based it off of three works of his. One was called Hello Goodbye, Dance for Life, and Sweet for Three, Rich Perry, because he wrote these works for the Village Vanguard Jazz Orchestra based on the personality of various players in the group. And one was great tenor saxophonist Rich Perry, and so I based the last portion of the piece off of that one, and got a really good recording. Some great solos were taken by some of the musicians in the big band that was put together for that reading session,
That's dope.
and
That's dope.
yeah, it was really cool. And so that was like my time with that organization and that workshop. I was able to hook up with an old college friend of mine who got a chance to hear those works, and he was like, "Hey, look, man, I think I might have a commission project for you. I'm gonna keep it under the hat for a second, but when I hit you up, I'll need at least two charts from you for this artist.
Mhm.
And and then finally he hit me up and he was like, actually, everybody has two charts, but for you, because of some of the ideas you ran by me, I want you to do one more, and I want you to use that house music approach that you were talking about
Okay.
for one of his hit songs. And that person ended up being a Lebanese like superstar on the oud and as a singer. His name is Charbo Roana, and
Okay.
he's a legend. He's a legend in Lebanon. He teaches a lot in Canada and parts of Europe too as well. He's a sought after oud teacher, and um, we when I first did the charts, I wrote them in a fashion that to make it easy for the band. And he was like, "Look, you don't need to do that for this group. This group is it's a world class group. They got great lead trumpet players. They got a great lead trumpet player, lead trombonist, lead alto player who doubles." And I was like, "Do they double?" He was like, "Yes." I was like, "Oh well, say no more. Now I can just go and like give me another 2 weeks. I'll redo all the charts." So I took all the charts back. I was like, "Keep those versions." And I'll just and so I ended up writing six charts for them. And
Jeez.
I told him keep those versions. I'm just redo the charts. So one of their tunes, he had this tune called "Coffee." That's it's a nice little dainty. It actually features female voice, but it's him playing oud on it, and it's it's Middle Eastern stuff. So it's got this. It's got that sort of little bouncy, like almost like a like very Indian style feel. So I did that, and I was like, would you guys mind swinging in the section? Because I like to throw a trombone solo in this and let it work. And he was like, trombone solo? For real? And I'm like, yeah. You want to do the trombone? Because nobody wants to give the trombones nothing. And I was like,
Really?
yeah, I love the
Okay.
trombone. So I wrote the trombone solo. And man, they played through that sucker, and they just had fits, man. With it was just like, oh my god, like thank you, man. And then at the end of it, I decided to use a sort of a Luther Vandross harmonic approach from one of his songs. It's the song "Don't You Know."
Okay.
And so what I ended up doing is sort of using sort of the rhythmic approach to it, but against that boom, check, check, boom, check, check, boom, check. So so it ended up working out. And so like what people don't understand, like my harmonic approach is also it's not just informed by classical and jazz either, but it's also informed by a lot of R&B stuff too,
Okay.
and soul music and neo soul music as well. It's informed by a lot of those styles as well. And harmonically speaking, because a lot of those musicians that play those styles, they come up with some pretty cool sounds, but they just don't know what those sounds are. They just
Okay.
do it intuitively.
Okay.
And so then it takes somebody like me to come along and say, well, that's actually this. You're actually implying this scale or this type of harmonic structure and that kind of a thing. But yeah.
Well,
Um,
would you say the experimentation level of your generation versus priors, more or less?
um, I think generations prior, it's sort of like they were the first to get to it.
Okay.
And so that's what makes a lot of their experimental time so special and unique because
Mhm.
people weren't thinking to do this.
Right.
People weren't thinking that like to take a funk riff and throw that against some heavy like jazz chord progressions,
Hmm.
that kind of a thing. And so then you come up with this fusion, this thing called jazz fusion. When I came along, we just had more subgenres that informed a lot of our stylistic approaches to like
Okay.
fusion,
Gotcha.
and even mainstream traditional jazz and even like the R&B stuff and all that stuff. We just had more subgenres that could inform
Hmm.
what we did stylistically because that stuff had already been done. So we
Hmm.
could pick from that. But then we had the new stuff, and as jazz musicians, we had new stuff coming up in the 90s. Again, and on my first album, in my The Awakening, the song called The Awakening, the bridge is I'm using the Mary J. Blige Real Love beat, you know, and even to this day, nobody. I think you know why. And here's the story of why I decided to use that beat. My drummer in my band at the time, I love him to death. He's still with us and he's still playing great. Great drummer from Houston, Texas, named Clyde Adams. Man, super bad cat, super bad cat, swinging. Um, has a lot of drum chops, great drum chops. In fact, I made it a point to feature him on that opening track on the album because he's got all these rock chops and like strong contemporary gospel chops and stuff. But I heard him one day. He was messing around. Like we're messing around. We're playing some stuff, playing through some jazz standards. He's swinging his butt up, swinging, and then we go to this hip hop thing where he does this sort of like out of time, boom, 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 and then we hit this bridge of this tune, and he's like boom, 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 boom. I was like, how do you know that beat? He was like, yeah, I know that song. I'm like, you know that song? And he was like, yeah, I know that song. I was like, oh my God, man. I was like, dude, that is so killing, man. That's so cool. And I never forgot that. And
Yeah.
then when I wrote that tune, I did that especially for him, and he knew exactly. He was like, "Yep." And so when we hit that tune, bum, da, 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 dum, ba-doom, ba-bum, bum, 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 ba-bum, ba-bum. He'd go right into it. He just knew
Okay.
exactly what to do. I wrote it for. I wrote out the pattern. He didn't even need the pattern. He just like went right to it. So
Yeah.
it's just like so. Like with us, like when we were coming up, we just had more. We just had a few more subgenres and styles that we could just draw upon, and we could
Okay.
bring that to the jazz side of things. And so then we were creating uniquely different things all together because we just had more music that we could listen to.
Mm-hmm.
And then when with the advent of a lot of the sort of symphonic jazz approaches, like via people like Maria Schneider and later people like and then the later iteration of the late great Bob Brookmeyer and his stuff, and then you start having people even like now who are very heavily involved in composition and composing for jazz, big band. People like Omar Thomas, which I mean, he's part of the L Gibbons community, but damn, he writes good shit though. I gotta say, he
That's all
writes
that matters.
great
Yeah.
stuff, man.
Yeah.
And the guy, so he brings sort of and it's crazy because he has sort of he's a tether, by the way. He's like a New Guinea guy. He's like a New Guinea guy, but I think his folks are from like Guyana or French Guyana. I think it's maybe French Guyana. I think it's
Okay.
folks in Guyana. I think, and but he's into gospel music, and so he brings some contemporary gospel stuff to the jazz stuff, and so yeah, man, he just writes great stuff, and so a lot of that stuff is not swing, explain kind of stuff, but he's just but it's like that ethereal thing, but it's like it's got this gospelly tinge to it,
Yeah.
which is
Yeah.
like really it's pretty unique. But a lot of that is like now people just have more music that they can draw upon for that type, and styles and subgenres that they can draw upon for inspiration. Yeah.
Well, right on, right
Yeah.
on. Dr. Doug, I've had you on for almost 2 hours, sir. Another master
Oh man,
class
that went by so
in
quick. I didn't even notice it. I
another
didn't even notice
master
it, man.
class.
Oh man, yeah, yeah. And I need to rap with you. I'll rap with you off camera at some point too. I'll email me your phone number too
Yeah,
because
yeah, yeah,
I'm
for
gonna
sure, for sure,
talk to you about some stuff,
for
especially with
sure.
on the content creation side of things too. That's
Man,
the thing there.
say less, say less.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, absolutely. Yeah, man. But yeah, no, that it always flies by, especially when I get to like kind of stretch out and really
I
talk
know
about stuff.
I love seeing you nerd out, and I be like,
Yeah,
I'm following, I'm keeping up.
yeah,
Okay.
yeah. Oh
Because
man, no, that's great,
I
man.
don't get a chance to talk to you guys like on your level,
Yeah,
not anymore, not these days. And when I get a chance, man, I'm like, yeah, I remember this feeling now, and I'm learning at the
yeah,
feet of the
yeah,
masters, and I'm like, yeah, I remember this feeling. So Thank you for taking me back to that. Yeah,
Absolutely, man. Let me ask you: do you still deal with music?
I do.
You do. Okay.
It's a it's yeah it's the thorn that will never
Yeah.
leave my side. So
Yep. 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 You try to quit her. She keeps
I
coming
mean,
back.
yeah, it's just it is. I'm just it is what it is. Like this is
Yeah.
it's always going to be attached to me in some way, shape, form, or fashion. So yeah,
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah.
Now,
I
now,
just
now,
don't
do you
talk about it
still
as much.
are you still involved in the industry?
Yeah, Universal
Okay.
still seeks my seeks me out for questions and
Nice.
stuff regarding artists, and so I'm
Yeah.
like, okay, so yeah, if they call, I'll pick up. You know, they email
Yeah.
me.
Yeah,
I still
man.
get yeah, I still
Speaking of
get
Universal,
all
they're one
the
of the ones suing
yeah,
Suno
I
right
still get all
now.
the music releases that I ain't listen. I ain't paid for a CD in 15 years, man. I get all I still get
Yeah,
the
man.
free
That's
the hookups
awesome.
and stuff like that. So yeah, yeah,
That's really
yeah,
cool, man.
yeah,
That
yeah,
is really cool. Yeah, man. That's really cool, man. Yeah. I remember coming across an article where they were interviewing you. I can't remember. Was it double XL or something? It was an article, but it was talking about your time dealing with A&R and stuff. And
Oh,
I thought it was
okay,
a really cool article, and just like
okay.
all of that history, like dealing with the music that you were dealing with back then. It's like, geez, man, this guy's been around for a minute, man. I didn't realize that, man. I was
I've been
like,
blessed.
yo,
I listen. I have
yeah,
nothing bad. Even all the bad shit I went through,
yeah,
I've learned so much from. I have nothing bad to
yeah.
say, man. I enjoy my time, you know.
That's
So,
awesome, man. That's killing. Now, now, how long were you in Atlanta for, too?
oh God,
Because that's
Atlanta
a
was
fascinating story.
wait, don't give me the lion. Atlanta was 2008 to maybe
Okay.
2011, and
Really?
down there,
Wow.
yeah. This is when Jeezy was
What a
popping.
period to get down there, man.
Yeah, I listen. I was there, man. Like that
Like the
that
height of the
second.
Crunk
Yeah,
period,
yeah.
man.
Coach K,
Jeez.
Jeezy, Ti. Like I
Yeah.
was, yeah. I was in the mix. I was in the
Okay.
mix.
Okay. Not to put her out there like that. I have to know this because the person that they're saying it was with, I can't see it, but I can't. If it's true, I can't unsee it either.
Okay.
So part of maybe one of the I maybe describe her as one of the princes of sort of the hip hop R&B industry at the time.
Talking about Sierra.
And yes.
Yeah, it's true. Jazzy Faye. Yeah, she was a
Oh
pass
my
around.
God.
Yeah,
Oh
that's
no.
how. Listen, that's how we met her.
Oh no.
Doc, come on, bro. Listen, this dude is 400 pounds.
I understand.
Come on, man. Come on, man. We already knew what time it was.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's how we
Lord
met
have
her.
mercy, man.
Yeah,
Oh man.
yeah,
So
yeah.
now, so now I'm going to say for cats out here that feel like they can't get nobody, there is no excuse. There
And
is no
you know
excuse.
the weird things. Nobody, because Atlanta's different. Nobody judged her. Like we're like,
No, no, no.
we get it.
I wouldn't either. I mean, I
Yeah,
wouldn't
we
either.
get it.
I don't
You
know.
gotta do what you gotta
I don't
do.
know
It's
with anybody
yeah,
at the
yeah,
time, but it's what it is. And
yeah.
I've heard. I mean, I'm in jazz. We've seen that this stuff is very quiet in the jazz music part of the
Okay,
industry, and so I see this stuff all the time. I
yeah.
get it. I understand, and you know, our audience is just older. That's really what it was at the time. Our audience was just a little older, a little more mature. But other
Well,
than
the
that,
thing with
yes,
the hip hop was like, okay, this is the nasty part of the music business. Even though
yeah.
gospel's nasty, jazz is
Oh God,
nasty,
I mean,
R&B is nasty, but we're gonna put hip hop out in front. This is what it looks like.
yeah,
Everybody,
yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
that's
Yeah. But it's like
the
it happens. This is one of the reasons why I'm so indifferent to like a lot of the like Diddy stuff and even now the Fat Joe stuff. It's just kind of like,
yeah.
I mean, cats were volunteers for a lot of this, and we get it. People were young too. Hey, keep in mind, people were really young. Still young. During that period, and it's just like,
Listen,
uh,
when we hear
man,
Meryl Streep talk about her casting couch exploits, with no one bats an eye. You don't see her crying or complain. She's like, it was what it was.
it
Yeah,
just was what it was. Yeah.
yeah.
Heck, even the stuff that I've like with Badu and Baduism and man, like it's what it is, man. It's just
Yeah,
what it is, and
yeah.
I'm yeah. But yeah, I was just like, oh man, I was like, wow. I I can't see it, but I get it. Yeah, yeah, okay.
It was listen. He
And
come
just
through.
like
He come through the what was the name of the studio? It wasn't. This was before Stankonia was like up and running. But he
yeah,
come through, and he be like, "Oh, this, and she's a pretty girl." And we were like, "Okay,
yeah,
well,
yeah. I
I
mean,
mean, you
I
didn't
don't blame
you didn't have to think
him.
twice. Like, okay, we see what it is. Yeah,
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I don't blame him. I mean, she's a very attractive young lady,
I
and
wasn't gonna tell
still
her
is.
no.
I mean,
I wasn't
it's
gonna say
wonderful.
no. What me too? Okay, I wasn't gonna say no to
Well,
her. Like,
yeah. I mean, a lot of cats, like, even though if cats wanted to complain about that, it's just like, dude, if she divorced Russell tomorrow and came knocking at your door
listen,
and you were
inbox
single,
is still full.
you would just be like, okay, out of all the cats, okay, fine, we can hang. Okay, I
Yeah,
guess we can hang. We hanging. Yeah, okay.
yeah,
you
yeah.
know, so it's not like I don't think a lot of you guys complaining about her doing that or having that period where they're whoever she was dating
As
at
long
the
as
time.
you
You're not
think you're
kicking
gonna get
her
a
out of the
shot,
bed. So.
yeah, that's all that matters. Do I get a turn?
Yeah.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
That's it.
it's
That's it. What are we talking about?
just like all the stuff like, oh, I can't believe Janet Jackson was with this bum. And I'm like, if she was with you, you ain't kicking her out
You
of
what
the bed.
exactly? You want to be the
Yeah,
bum.
especially in her
So
heyday. Yeah, yeah, you got to be the bum. Exactly. Oh goodness.
Dr.
Yeah.
Doug,
Music,
my man.
industry shenanigans.
Yeah. But yeah, I'll go ahead and get that my number to you. So for sure.
Okay.
But once again, thank you
Yeah.
as always. I'm always humble when you
Absolutely,
come
man.
through
Thanks
and
for
bless
hitting
us,
me up.
man.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's always great to do this with you, man. And thanks for hitting me up to do this with you, man. Appreciate it, man.
Always, always,
Always
always.
fun. Yeah, absolutely.
All right, my
All
guy.
right.
Enjoy the rest of your
All
night.
right. Yeah, you do the same, man,
Thank
and
you.
give our love to the family as well, man.
Well, thank you, thank you. We'll do.
Yes, sir. Yes,
All right.
sir. All
Have a
right.
good one.
Yep, you do the same.
Shout out to Dr. Doug. Okay, we're going to war. All right, let me go ahead and end this, and then we're gonna fire up a live. I'm coming right back. We going to war, y'all. We going to war.